What's up, everybody? RLTK Podcast. Jordan here with my boy Chris. Chris, what's good?
It's good, man.
Hey, so we had to upgrade things a little bit real quick here in the middle of the season. Shout out to my boy Tommy at UIWI. You know, Tommy decided, he's going to talk some trash to me and tell me on my podcast is trash. And so I was like, all right, bet, say less. We're going to have to step this up.
Yeah.
And he wasn't really saying it was trash. That's just me. But we know we needed to step up the quality for you guys. And so this is our attempt at that. So we're excited about this. We're excited to have more guests on, both in person and on video.
Yes, sir.
We're excited to continue having these dialogues and conversations about things that matter as it pertains to Gen Z. And shout out to UIWI2, one of our partners. Our main partner. These guys have invested in us and helped us get to where we are right now. They are concerned with raising up leaders from urban areas that would champion the gospel and restore broken communities.
Yeah.
So shout out to my boys. Check out their podcast, The Radical Middle. If you haven't yet already, it's on YouTube and on other platforms as well. But anyways, Tommy, this is for you. You know what I'm saying? You gave me some smoke a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, bet I gotta step it up a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So let's get it.
There's always room for improvement.
That's true.
It's always room.
Yeah, I know. Kind of like them Cowboys, right?
Oh,
they sure have been improving.
Well, maybe. I mean, look,
find out this weekend.
The reason why they're improving is because the money's coming in. Let's talk about that. The reason why they're improving, or is perceived to be, is because someone's about to get paid.
Yeah.
So
that began on my nerves.
We'll see.
He began on my nerves with that. For real. Like every time it's a contract year.
Yeah.
Every time, bro, this dude steps up and starts balling.
Yep.
Every time.
Hey, man, there is something that is true.
And they about to pay this dude $50 million.
Yeah.
And then he about to be washed again.
Yes. I think that is accurate.
But you know what? Let's say
I like Dak, though. Don't get me wrong.
Let's say he wins us a Super Bowl this year. I'm gonna be cool. It's whatever. Pay the man. It's all good.
Look, if I get to see a Super Bowl in my lifetime, I will be satisfied if they never win again.
Facts. I just need one. I just need to go to the promised land one time.
One time, bro.
Just one time,
That's
bro.
all I need, man.
God, don't do me like Moses, please. You know what I'm saying?
Facts.
All right, bro. So what are we getting into today?
All right. So I think for our first podcast back in the new year, 2024, right? Since we always talked about, engaging Gen Z and having conversation with Gen Z, I think the first conversation we should have is how to ask questions. I think and I was thinking about this just past couple weeks, trying to really understand how things work. It's just like, man, I don't even think we're asking the right questions. I don't think we're really pondering the right things. I don't think we're actually entertaining the right conversations. Because there's this whole thing around truth, my truth, or how can we shape society? What should our governments look like? What should law look like? It's like all these things are centered around questions, and I just want to. It just comes to me like, man, I don't even think we're even asking the right things to know the right things. And so I wanted to just dive into the idea of asking questions.
Yeah.
And so,
which is central to what we do too, right?
Yes, exactly.
Our whole organization, ministry, philosophy is shaped around this idea of asking questions. So
yep, I agree. And so, I mean, I guess I just start with like, why do you think questions are so important?
That's good, bro. Well, ultimately, I think there's a bunch of reasons why questions are important, but I think as I think about Gen Z, as I think about youth, as I think about this next generation, the thing that immediately comes to mind for me is they want to know that we care about them. And one of the ways that you can show people that you care about them quite easily is to ask them questions. And the reason for that is like you're tapping into and discussing what they care about. You know what I'm saying? And so when you do that, people feel like they're being heard. People feel like they're cared about. And that's the only real way that you can learn about another human, right? You got to ask them questions. You got to hear their story. You got to hear what they've been through. You got to hear what they think about different things or about different things that are important, right? And obviously we're in the realm of talking about philosophy, theology, and different things of that nature. So you want to have conversations with your young people about those things. But instead of us just being people who tell them what's true, can we have conversations where we discover truth together, right? And it's not so much that the truth changes as much as it is the way we communicate it does, and also the way that young people understand it does too. And so I think like questions allow you to communicate care and concern for somebody. They allow you to locate where a person's actually at, right? So that you can respond aptly in ways that are about things that they actually care about. Because there's a lot of times we're just talking and we're talking about stuff that people don't even care about. And we don't realize they don't care about it because we haven't asked them if they care about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, like I don't know about you, bro, but when it comes to like Christmas, I ain't about guessing. When it comes to presents, just tell me what you want.
Facts.
I don't want to go to the store and buy the wrong thing and then you be all salty. Just tell me what you want and I'm going to go buy that. Facts. And you're going to be happy and I'm going to be happy because you got what you wanted and I got to get you what you wanted, right? Instead of me playing this game where I got to guess and then you pretending you happy, right? To make me feel good about myself because I got you this thing and you didn't really want that.
Yeah.
And so all I had to do was ask. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Giving some I just changed somebody's life with some relationship advice. They're like, I'm gonna ask her now. I'm gonna ask him now. I'm telling you.
Yeah, that's fair.
Just ask. I ask every time. What do you want?
Yeah,
right.
That's fair.
Maybe that's because I've been married for 10 years. Shout out to my people who've been married for a long time.
Hey man, shout out to my single people, man.
Long, but you've been married for a minute. You probably know you ain't into guessing no more. What do you want, girl? What do you want, guy? You know what I'm saying?
Fair. Yeah, I get
so.
You.
Yeah, I think questions they changed the game, bro. What are your thoughts, though?
Yeah, I think for me, when it comes to why questions are so important, is because it's the foundation of the presupposition of how you perceive things. I think experience does a heck of a number on your mind. Just going through life can do a number on your brain, and it can do a number on your emotions. And I think if you don't really know how to ask questions, you can't really shape your presupposition, how you assume things ought to be.
All right, bro. You gotta go down a different level.
So like
presups and stuff. You gotta.
I mean, like, so for example, like, I mean, so like, do you remember like your first fight you ever had? You know, like, you know,
got whooped.
Yeah. Me too, low key. Me too. I had to learn. Look, bro, I had to learn how to fight. I had to. Like, it's just, you know,
just for the record,
with it.
I will tell you right now, I would never, ever, ever fight this dude over here. Ever.
No. No. But like, so, but anyways, like, I remember the first fight, you know, and it's like the altercation, we're arguing and things of that nature. And, you know, you get punched in the face and then you fight back. And it, to a certain degree, it gives you a certain level of trauma. You know, there's no other word I can really think of.
Yeah.
But it shapes your mind on how the world is, right? Because you come, if you're like me, you come from the couch and sitting there watching Barney and Teletubbies and Magic School Bus and learning about rain and germs, you know, and then you step off the front porch for the first time and someone punches you in the face. And you like, and you're like, Barney lied to me. Like, you know, please doesn't work. You know, asking doesn't work. It's like, you know, and so the reality of depravity, the reality of, you know, the degenerate nature of being a human really comes to the forefront, you know. And then now you're sitting here with the reality of man, this is true, and it shapes the way you view people. It shapes the way you see a particular gender. It shapes the way you see race. It shapes the way you see your parents. And so just life does a number on your mind and your emotions, and it makes you perceive things a certain way.
Yeah.
And I think if we don't do a good job of asking questions, we won't be able to shape our presuppositions on how we perceive life. And so that's why I think why questions are very important, man.
Yeah.
You know?
So let me reflect that back real quick to make sure I'm tracking with you. So you're kind of saying like we need to ask better questions to get to the core of why somebody believes what they believe.
Exactly.
And then give them the space to evaluate whether that's even a good thing to believe.
Absolutely.
100%, bro.
Absolutely.
So good.
Yeah.
It makes me think of like, have you ever like, I don't know if this is just me, but have you ever believed something that's like super dumb?
Yes.
And then, and then when you actually talk about it for the first time and say it out loud, you like, yo, that was hella stupid.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you talked about it for the first time and you said it out loud for the first time. And you're like, that didn't sound as good as it sounded in my head.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And just think about that in the context of like relationships and all, like everything. When the faith, reading the Bible, like, and I think that's why it's so important for us to like live in community and have conversations about things that matter, because like sometimes you just need the space to air a concern, to air something that's like on the inside of you that's causing anxiety, causing fear. You know, scripture says that Satan, like is like in the darkness, you know what I'm saying? And like we got to bring things in the light, into the light, right? And the light kind of reveals whether those things are true or not.
Yeah.
And so I think like some of that is true. And like, so in the context of conversation, there is this space where people get to bring, if you'll allow them, if you'll create that kind of space, the things that they truly believe to the light so that they can evaluate them in ways they've never evaluated them before.
Yeah.
And so others can speak into those things. And then also like, I think the ultimate thing about conversation is like God, the Holy Spirit is involved. And so what you can actually do is foster a dialogue between a young person and God, the Holy Spirit. Right.
Yeah.
Because now you're creating room, like, as you're helping them ponder and process and question things to like allow God into that process in their mind and in their heart. Like, okay, God.
Yeah.
Well, if you are there, help me make sense of this. Yeah. Okay, God, if you are there, help me make sense of that.
Yeah.
Okay, God, if that's true, then how is this true? Right. And so there's prayers and thoughts and different things going on in them that are fostered and stirred in that space of conversation where you're challenging those presuppositions. That's good, bro.
Yeah. I want to add on to what you say, because I think this is very, very important to understand. While we're out here having discussions with people, having debates, and or just, going back and forth with certain things, I think we need to understand is that we're not debating ideas. We're debating beliefs, right? We're not, these are not just ideas that's in the mind that goes back and forth. No, we're debating what I actually need to know or to believe to exist. Okay. So we're not just debating an idea that we read out of a book or an idea that we was thinking about as we was drinking coffee. This is something that I firmly believe in. Regardless if you think it's foolish, stupid, or absurd or irrational, doesn't matter. I believe this. And so I think you made a good, and we have to be able to nurture these things, because again, belief is very deep. It's deep because we embody it, right? You don't like it's I don't really think you embody ideas until you actually believe it. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I can believe, I can have an idea of a football player, but if I don't believe in him in the sense of, man, I can relate to him.
Yep.
Then he's just an idea in my mind.
Yep.
You understand what I'm saying?
No, absolutely. Because you're getting at this idea that we actually live out the things that we believe.
Absolutely. Yep.
Like, there's a difference between an idea and a belief, in the sense that belief actually shapes action.
Yep.
And an idea is just something that's ruminating around in our minds.
Yes.
That we're kind of considering or coming to a conclusion on whether it's true and it should affect the way that we live, or we should discard it because it has no real implications for our lives.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good.
It is, man. I think it's important to understand that, because this is why God has to be in the picture. This is why he has to, because we don't have the depths of wisdom and the power to change a belief like this, that deep, right? Not in the sense of what the cross symbolizes and what the cross has done. We don't have that type of power to shape the belief to just do a 180 like that. It's
That's
impossible.
good.
So, but I think our responsibility on this side of the realm is to know how to ask questions. Is to know how to nurture and to take care and love and serve that belief, so they can see something different. So God could come in and intervene and make a different and make a shift, make a change. And so that's why questions are very important. But I think to go a little bit further, it's since we're talking about questions, what are some questions that you see Gen Z is asking?
Man, I think it's interesting. I think every generation has like a question that it asks. Like generally speaking, maybe in a particular part of the country or particular part of the world, right? Everybody has a question that they're asking.
Yeah.
I think for Gen Z is in the West, they're asking, do you care about me? Does your God care about me? And does your God care about my friend? Do you see me? Does your God see me? Does your God see my friends? And the reason I put it that way is because I think for our generation, like millennials, right? Like we were more obsessed with the why. So we were the reliability of the Bible, why Jesus is the only way. And not that those questions still aren't being asked, but I don't think they're like at the forefront of young people's minds. They were the way they were at the forefront of our minds, because I think we were a little bit more logical in our thinking. Right. And I think Gen Z's more postmodern. And so they're more empiricist in their thinking, right? It's more about how they feel and that shaping reality. And so because of that, I think the questions they're asking are more questions of feeling.
Yep.
So does God love me, care about me? Do you love me, care about me? Do you love and care about my friends? Do you love and care about my LGBTQ friend, my trans friend, so on and so forth, right? And so I think that's why they do stuff like, say that they're a part of the LGBTQ community, even though they're not interested, right, in being like living that out sexually per se, but it's because they want to show that they're standing with their friend, right? And so I think it's why they're willing to do things like that. It's why they're willing to forsake any, because they're obviously anti-institutional too, so they're willing to forsake any type of organized gathering for the sake of their friends. And that's why if they feel like the spaces we're creating are not welcoming, whether that be our homes, whether that be our sports teams, whether that be our church communities and youth groups, if those places aren't places where those types of people can come and feel loved, then they'll disband, they'll discard those places. And obviously, we have to navigate the tension between loving and caring for people and then also communicating the truth. Right. So I want to be clear about that. But then once again, it comes back down to the conversation we're having at hand. It's like, how do we communicate the truth? Right. It's not just the fact that we have the truth. It's that we need to communicate it in a way that actually makes sense for this generation, right? And I think this is where questions and conversation becomes essential. It makes me think of the Apostle Paul, Acts 17, Mars Hill. He communicates in a way that is very relevant to the people that he's talking to the unknown God, right? I see you have a statue over there, right? And it's because you guys are mad pluralistic and you're worshiping all these gods and you're not sure which one the right one is. And so you've got this statue over here. It's like, hey, in case we missed anybody, we're just trying to cover all our bases here to make sure we don't get crushed up by nobody. Well, let me alleviate your fear concerning who this unknown God is, right? And so he leans into that, and then he leans into some of their philosophers, right, and the things that he says.
He does.
And so in the same way, I think we need to lean into some of the philosophers of Gen Z's day, right? Some of the unknown gods that are like the things that they're thinking about and the things that they're caring about, right? And so, and then what we do is we communicate the truth in a way that makes sense to them. It's not that we're changing the truth, right? Let's be clear. Jesus is Lord.
Correct.
Right? And God is reconciling the world to himself in Christ. But how we communicate that good news can take many forms. And so what we're trying to do is make sure it takes the form that is going to be most received by young people. Once again, not changing what the gospel is, but changing how we're communicating it. If we communicate in the best way possible and somebody rejects it, they'll stand before God and be held accountable for that, right?
Yeah.
And that is true for all of us.
It is.
But we also don't want to be the stumbling block. You know what I'm saying? Let the gospel be the stumbling block.
Yeah.
Not me. I don't need to stand in the way. Let the gospel stand in the way, right?
Yes.
And so I'm going to do everything I can to move out of the way. And I think one of the things I can do is to think about how I'm communicating it, and am I communicating it in a way that makes sense to this generation? Am I shaping my home or my sports team or my classroom or my youth group or whatever else in a way that these young people can feel invited and accepted and loved and cared for, but at the same time understand, like, yo, what are you going to do with this man named Jesus?
Yeah. I find it I'm trying to see how can I communicate this, because truth doesn't change, but generations does, right?
Yep.
Millennials and Gen Z are not the same.
Correct. They are not.
Even in the idea of humor, what we find comical, they don't. It's very interesting how I think the same truth that we looked for when we was their age, they're looking for the same truth. And I think that how they operate in pursuing truth is different from how we operate from pursuing truth. And if we was, because we come from the era of seek the authority figures, right? You know, seek the doctors, seek the lawyers, seek the mentors, seek the pastor, like mentor me, right? Lead me, right? So we come from, let's find the authoritative figures to lead us. But Gen Z is more social, right? It's more societal based. It's more communal in a sense, right? And so they're more interested in people's ideas and gathering conversations, and you get what I'm saying. And it makes sense to me why they would be more inclined to how they feel, right? And so, but again, I think this is very important to discuss, because emotions is a very big deal. Like, it's not
facts.
Like, I know in history they like to get rid of, well, some parts of history they wanted to get rid of emotion. It was all reason, but emotion plays a very big part in how you perceive things, right? Because emotion, to a degree, lets you know that you're experiencing something, right? It lets you know if it lets you know if you're feeling bad or you're feeling good, or what you're experiencing is bad or what you're experiencing is good. Like, emotion plays a very big part in that. And this is why Gen Z is very good at weeding out if you're authentic or not. You know what I'm saying? Because they can feel that. And so communicating in what's the word they use today, it's like emotional intelligence, right? And so like being aware of your own emotions, but also being aware of theirs, and also be able to communicate and so but emotions is very difficult to understand, because I think there's a proverb, it says that the purpose of a man is deep waters, but the man with wisdom can draw it out. And so I think, like, the purpose, the desire, the emotions that we have is very deep. It's deep waters. Right. It's dark down there. It's very hard to draw out the matter of things. Yeah, but it says the man with wisdom can draw it out. And I think that the one way we can draw out the desire for truth, I think one of the key pathways is questioning things. But I think also, like, the gospel, how you communicate the gospel it's emotional, bro. If you really contemplate the fact that God left the throne and got on a cross for all humanity, for a pathway to perfection and righteousness and holiness, uh, and what he had to do to get there, and that's a little bit that's emotional, bro, because there's no profound work, there's no profound moral work that Chris can do that can get him to that position, to that place.
Yep.
And so I understand that that hits me. It hits me emotionally because I see how broken I am, and I see how, you know, it just dismantles me, bro. It gets to me. And so I think I like what you said. Like, we have to learn how can we communicate this truth? And I think it's like, how can we communicate this truth emotionally to
yeah, absolutely.
Gen Z? I think
Yes.
that's a good question to ask,
Yes.
right? And so that's something I have to think about. It's not like, you know, it's not like I have that answer, but it's something that
Well,
that
here's what comes to mind for me when I think about that question: stories,
that's
narrative.
good. Yeah.
Which I think is essential for this generation.
That's good.
Right?
Yeah.
Because like there's this ability to place yourself in a story when you hear it, right?
Yeah.
And you resonate with certain characters. Like, I don't know about you, but you ever watched a TV show and just like really despised a particular character?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I hope that person like ceases to exist type stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, yeah, right?
It's true. Yeah.
And so there's something powerful about story. And obviously, like, the gospel is this meta narrative, right? This story that's being told throughout thousands of years, right? 66 books, multiple authors. I can't remember how many. I think it's like 40 or something, maybe more, over a several thousand-year period, right?
Yeah.
It's telling this one story about God's plan to reconcile his people to himself, to reconcile the world to himself in Christ.
Yeah.
And so when you tell that story, and you allow young people to place themselves in it. And that's the beautiful thing about the gospel. I don't think, and we keep saying this and we're going to keep saying it, I don't think the gospel is just this religious story that people tell so that we can go to sleep at night and feel comfortable and safe. And like, you know, even though we're like, you know, not doing the things we're supposed to be doing and doing, you know, nothing with our lives, there's this, you know, sky daddy that's up there looking out for us and taking care of us when we make bad decisions. No, that's not what we're saying. What we are saying is we believe that this world was created and ordered and shaped by a being, and he has revealed himself to us as God Yahweh. And Yahweh was with us in the beginning when he created things, and our parents, Adam and Eve, decided that they knew better than God and decided that they could make better choices than God and chose to do what he had asked them not to do. And as a consequence, something entered into the world called sin. We don't quite know what it is. We know that it's attached to us. We know that it's in us. We know that it's around us. We know that it's broken, not just us, but reality is fractured. Our world, I think it's at the core of why animals function the way they do, why we see natural disasters the way that we do, and all those different types of things. And so there's something fundamentally off about existence because the people that God put in charge of it decided they knew better than God. And so God in his goodness and in his graciousness then made a plan, right, to reconcile us to himself in the midst of our rebellion. And the reality is, like, we're all very in tune with our own rebellion. We're all very conscious of our own evil. We know the things that we do when no one else is looking, when no one else is watching, when we're in our beds at night and we're on our phones by ourselves, and all those, we know, right? But and we know the evil out there too. We see the things that are happening in our world. We see the tragedies that are taking place. We see the evil things that people are doing against one another, right? And those two things connect. Why? Because we understand that the evil out there is in us. And there's something that needs to be done about it. And we can't fix it. I don't know how many times I've tried to solve my own problems. It never seems to work. I don't know how many times I've told myself I'm going to change, and 5 minutes later, I'm doing the very thing that I said I wasn't going to do. And in fact, the fact that I said I wasn't going to do it anymore made me want to do it more. And so what am I supposed to do about this? Because that is something that exists in all of us. Right? And why? How do we make sense of that? Sin. And so what do? We need somebody to rescue us. The only God I see that comes to rescue us is Jesus. Right?
It's true.
And so that story makes sense of our existence.
Yeah, it's true.
It makes sense of why we're here, what we are, and why we are the way we are, and what we'll become. It answers those questions that science can't answer, that philosophy can't answer, that history can't answer, that no other discipline can answer other than theology.
It's true.
Narrative, bro.
You said it so beautifully. I agree. I wish I had the language to express because there's no other God, bro, that intervened in our life except Jesus. And when I read the scriptures, when I read the gospels, he makes sense of not just my darkness or my sin or my depravity, but he makes sense of the attributes that's been given to me.
Mm-hmm.
He makes sense. It makes sense.
Of the good.
He makes sense of the good that all the thinkers talked about.
Mm-hmm.
This is what's interesting to me, bro. I don't want this to be a sidetrack, but I think it's very interesting. All thoughts, like I think it was St. Augustine, all truth is God truth. All thoughts lead to him. All thoughts. If you really, when you read the thinkers, all thoughts lead to a form of a higher deity or a creator or the universe. It leads to something that is not of this planet. All thoughts.
Yes.
And
I mean, thoughts themselves are metaphysical.
It facts. Facts. And but it's interesting that he's the one that puts it in order. He makes the thoughts that are jumbled in your mind that you cannot literally put in structure, that you cannot put in a hierarchical value, or you can't put in order yourself, even though you try effortlessly. He himself puts it together. Because when you had that moment, it's like, it makes sense.
Yep.
I understand.
Yep.
He does that.
Yep.
And it's and you can't get away from that.
Nope.
He designed this world to point to himself. He designed it that way.
Correct.
There's no way you can get around it.
Nope.
You can't. It's like you can try, but even in your rebellion reveals that he has designed in your rebellion. It shows that it shows that he is the one that you need, even in your rebellion. Why? Because if it's true that we're made to worship, that in itself proves if you don't want him, then you're just going to go worship somebody else.
Or something else.
Yeah. Or something else.
Money, right? Power, fame, sex, whatever.
Yeah. So I think that's just beautiful the way you put it, man. And I think stories leads us to those ideals, to those questions. And
I think it allows us to, as you were saying, communicate the gospel in a way that connects with the emotions of young people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why in the context of conversation with them, sharing who you are, sharing what you've been through, being vulnerable, being open, being honest. And that doesn't mean you got to tell them everything that's happening in your life right now, right? But just communicating to them that you have been through things too, and that you have experienced difficult things in your life, and that those things have taught you lessons that are valuable, that they can learn from, and that they can recognize like, oh, dang, this person has been through stuff. This person like hasn't got it all figured out. This person isn't perfect, but they're trying to follow this Jesus guy. And this is intriguing to me. This is interesting to me. And like, they're not perfect and they're following Jesus. So maybe I don't have to be perfect to follow Jesus either. And that's the point, right? None of us are perfect. And so, I think even the way that we communicate the gospel communicates something. Right. And so I think in that the conversational space, there's more room for vulnerability, more room for compassion, more room for that emotional connection, more room for understanding and processing of truth and processing of thoughts and feelings. And I think like that's what this generation needs.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I agree. I do. I think I'm glad that we're talking about questions because I talk to Gen Zers, and me and you, me and you both, we talk to Gen Zers and
Mm-hmm.
we have conversations with them, and I think what concerns me the most is the fact that, and this is the next question, right? Is how do we ask the right questions, right?
Yep.
And um, and when you said communication, it's very hard for me, bro, because I don't know where to begin to ask the right questions. And a part of me thinks it starts with the gospel, it starts with how I perceive God, how I perceive the cross, my life, my community with you. Um, because I want to know, I want them also, I want Gen Z to know the truth. I
Mm-hmm.
want them to know what's right and what's correct, what's orderly, what's honorable, what's good. I want them to know. And words play a very big part in asking questions.
Yes.
Um, how you ask questions depends upon not just not just asking it, but how you phrase the question and how you choose the particular words and and place them together to ask the proper question. Because for some reason, uh, there's always more questions than there are answers,
Mm.
which leads to how do you actually know that you have an answer, really? But um, uh, um, communicating a question to Gen Z is very important. I think that if we can just have a conversation about what are things that you actually what are things that actually matter to you, what matters to you,
Mm-hmm.
why does it matter to you,
Yep.
um, and then you get to hear their story of this is why it matters to me because
Yep.
justice is very important to Gen
Yep.
Z. Uh, I've 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 never seen so much Gen Zers that desires justice,
Yep.
right? Uh, the way they do. But I think uh, we have to do better at asking proper questions and knowing how to ask questions
Well,
with people.
I think you just kind of like answered the question. Like, what are some things that you can ask that can get you into knowing what questions to ask,
Yeah,
right? And so I think an easy thing is like, what's your story? Who are you,
yeah,
right?
yeah. That's fair.
And so
That's fair.
in listening to who they are,
Yeah,
you're going to learn a bunch of other questions that you can ask. There's going to be a bunch of things you're curious about, right? Like, oh, why do they believe that? Oh, what happened there?
mhm.
And so now you can ask further questions and learn more
Yeah,
about them,
mm,
you know?
yeah,
Um, you could ask them like, what do you want to do with your life? You could ask them about the world
yeah.
and what they think about it. And,
The
you know,
worldview. Yeah,
if they were in control of the world, if they had all the power, like what would they make the world out to be?
yeah,
That'll give you some ideas into like how they view God or how they think God should operate.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? If there was a God according to them, right?
yeah,
And so like I think there are certain questions we can ask, like real like questions that give us like an entryway into that young person's life.
yeah,
But I think that once again, this kind of ties into this conversation about who this generation is. Um, they love labels, man. And I think they love labels because
they
they
do.
they want to be unique in individual,
Yeah,
and it's like this invitation to know them. I think that's why there's so many labels.
mm,
It's this invitation to know them personally and individually and separately.
that's good.
And so we have to do the work of knowing them that way,
Yeah,
which I think means that it's more difficult, it's more challenging for us, but I also think it's more rewarding if we do the work.
yeah,
Um, I think that means there needs to be intentional space to get to know them, right?
yeah,
Intentional space to ask them questions and listen to them and hear from them and build trust with them, right?
yeah.
Um,
That's good.
and so, yeah, like there's just so many different ways to do that But I think the easy place to start is like asking them their story. You know what I mean? And listening, and then asking more questions, reflecting that story back to make sure that you understood what it is that they said. Right?
Yeah.
And I think once again, it's tied into this idea that we feel like when we're communicating the gospel to a young person, we have to get it all in right now as quickly as possible.
Yeah, you don't have to.
And you don't have to. It can be this journey with them, or better yet, understanding that like God has them on a journey and you may just be a piece of it. And so how do we play our part right now? What is it this young person needs, and how can we communicate that to them right now?
Yeah.
Right. Is it that they need to see that this person, there's a person that loves them and cares for them, that's an older individual, that's a Christian, and maybe that's the role that you play. Maybe you don't see them come to faith, but you help them trust the local church. You help them trust pastors. You help them trust leaders. And then the next place they go to is where they're actually ready to respond. Right?
Yes.
And so like, and so I think like even that might be a prayer. Like, what is the role that I play in their journey? You know what I mean?
I do. I really do. I love that, bro. I'm so glad you said that. And it's hard, bro. It's difficult because it's difficult to know that if you know, it's difficult to know that you're just a piece of the puzzle in their life. And you're only a part of a season in their life.
Yep.
And it's hard to know that you will never see their fruit.
Yeah, you might not.
You're gone, you're done, and the only thing you can really do is pray. But I love what you said, that you can probably restore their faith back into the church institutions. You know, the church building.
Yep.
Right. A lot of them don't trust the church, and so maybe that's a part of.
Yep.
You know, and that's. I can't add nothing else to that. It's perfect the way it is. It's good.
Okay.
It's really good.
But I feel like that's a good place to put a pen in it.
It is.
Okay.
It is. It's funny though that you said they like labels, because they really do.
They do, bro.
And what's funny about that is that we don't.
Fact. At all.
Millennials don't
at all.
Labels.
At all. I gotta think about that some more. Why we don't.
Yeah. It's true. Good. It's absurd, but it's true.
All right, man. Well, that's the first episode back on the other side of Christmas.
Yes, sir.
Upgraded things a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Shout out to my boy Tommy at UIWI for getting on us and making it happen.
Yes, sir.
We coming, bro. So appreciate you. And appreciate all of you guys who are listening, who have been listening. Thank you. Yes. As you know, this is the beginning of the conversation, not the end. You got questions, you got comments, you got concerns, let us know. We want to continue to dialogue, continue to grow together, and continue to reach this next generation, continue to help them understand who Jesus is, what he's like, and why they should give their lives to him. And so we love you guys, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.